Hey, thanks for coming back to the channel. So what we're going to be working on today is another one of our shell removals and some just general maintenance lubrication points on a Lionel 681. So we're going to dig into this one, remove the shell, just go over some quick little maintenance tips, and I hope you guys enjoy this one. So what we're going to start off with right away is we're going to remove the face. You want to get just like a regular flathead screwdriver, and you can just put it in just behind the face, in between the face and the boiler, and just pry it off just a little bit there like that, and then you can get your hands on it and work it free. And there you can see there's a bulb held in place by this clip here. Okay, so you don't want to pull the thing out too far, just in case there's not enough slack on the wire holding the socket. You don't want to break that off. So we just pull it out just a little bit, and then just separate the bulb from the clip, and there you go, that's done. I turn the locomotive over, and there are 3 screws that hold the chassis to the shell. And if you have an original conditioned 681, or again 671 or 2020, they're flathead countersunk machine screws. There is 2 here at the rear, just in front of the rear trucks, and 1 singular one up at the front, just behind the, I still call them cow catchers. Let's get my hands out of the way. Just like that. Drops in, that's no big deal. So there we go, there's 1. And once again, I got my nice magnetic screw holding tray here, so I don't lose track of these guys. So now we'll get the back 2, like so. And I'll show you when I'm assembling the chassis to the shell again that I never really put too much pressure on these screws. I don't tighten them down, is what I'm trying to say, too much, because these die-cast boilers, if you tighten things too much, you could strip the threads out, and then you're in trouble because they won't hold anymore. Now these 2 screws are also considerably long. Okay, so that's the one side. There's the other. Now what we're going to do is we're going to lift this out straight, and there it comes. Okay, so there's your chassis removed from the boiler. We're going to put the boiler shell just up there, and that's it. That's what it looks like. The 681 is a pretty basic locomotive inside. It doesn't have a whole heck of a lot. Like I said, there is, I think the 2020 has a weight in here somewhere, a big chunk of metal. I'm not sure about the 671. I think it's pretty identical to this. Your magnet is under here for your magnet traction. As you can see, it's pretty strong. Obviously your E unit, your smoke unit. Now this smoke unit, when I got this, the original pellet type had been replaced with the liquid smoke unit, which, you know, you can use the liquid in the pellet types. It doesn't hurt it. It's going to work absolutely fine. What I end up doing is I use the pellet units until the element burns out, which has happened. And then once that does, I just replace it with one of these. They're really easy to switch out. I'll show you in another video. Now that we got the shell off, we're going to just look at some of the points that you should lubricate. One of them here is right down in the motor. You got the main worm gear. So bring this up a little closer to see if you can see it better here. Right down in there, right here. Okay, that's a really good spot to be dropping some grease. I just put a little drop down on the gears. Done, good to go. Okay, and the other spot is this hole right here. It's like an oil hole right down into the shaft of the motor. They don't need a whole heck of a lot. There we go, just one little drop, let that go down. And if you want to help it work through a little bit, you can just lift up the chassis and you can give the wheels a little spin. One other thing that you want to do on these and all of them is you can remove this back plate and then you can have a look at the armature and the brushes inside. Me and my helper, we tend to use the 681 a lot, right? He gets a lot of time on the track, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And what is it you call 681 again?
Penzi.
Right, he's Penzi.
And he's the second train that you've gotten.
Yeah. Okay, so now it's time to remove this backing plate so that we have access to the armature to give it a little bit of a polish and to clean up the brushes there. And to do that, it's simply just removing these two screws from the back, and then the whole plate will come off. So I'm going to start by taking these out. There's one. And there's two. Now, for this to come off, you just hold it firm, give it a little bit of a jiggle, and it'll start to ride up on these posts. And you can actually hold the whole thing upside down. If you do it this way, then the brushes aren't going to drop out onto your table. They'll stay in the back part of the this plate. So there we go. And there it is. So one of the things I try not to do with any of the locomotives is to move around and cause these wires to flex too much, especially the one on the winding, because they will break. And if you break this particular wire, I haven't been able to successfully repair this yet because there's usually not enough to resolder onto the back. So that's just one thing to be aware of. So now that we've got this fully apart, we can just reach into the back plate here and we can take out our brushes, put them off to the side, like so, and we can begin our cleaning. And also used to clean these armatures in most of the parts of all of my Lionels is just a green 3M Scotch pad. So you don't need to spray any cleaners on it or anything. You just take the pad, just put a little bit of pressure and just kind of rub it back and forth. Just like so on the plate. And you'll see that it actually buffs it up pretty nicely without a whole lot of effort. Since I clean this one fairly regularly, there's not a great deal of carbon buildup on it. Some of them are a little bit heavier, but usually this will still come off no problem with these pads. I'll just put my finger in there to kind of hold the armature in position and just give it a little bit of a buffing here. And there we go. The other thing that you need to be aware of are these slots in between the copper plates. Carbon buildup will get inside these as well. Again, if it's not done regularly, or especially if this is the first time that you've opened up the motor from a locomotive you just bought at a train show or online. So what I like to do with those in that case is I can get one of these little flossing tools, preferably the one still that has the extended end on there, or a toothpick, or a very small piece of wire, and you just run it inside these grooves and just dig out any carbon if there is any. Right, you don't take any force at all because you don't want to damage the plates. And once that's done, you're finished. So there we are. We've got that all cleaned. One of the other things we can do while we've got this apart is we can look into the backing plate itself to see if there's any carbon buildup on there. And if there is, you don't need to use any abrasive cleaners at all. You can just get a cloth and just wipe that out like that. This one's not too bad, so I don't have to worry about it too much. The other thing you can do while we got this apart is you can get a Q-tip, like so, or a cleaner one preferably, and you can just put it into the brush holders there and give it a bit of a spin, and that will take out any loose carbon that's stuck right in here. And you can also do that to this one too. And again, if this is the first time you're opening up your motor, it probably is going to have a significant buildup in it. So you just take a little bit more time with it. All right, so that's all done and ready to go. We can put our brushes back in. The notched end will go down into the holder, and there are a couple springs on here that those will fit into this notch and they help push the brush up towards the armature. So the smooth side you want facing towards the armature. So here we go, notched end in first, and that will just sit in there like that. The second brush, drop it down in there as well. And it's okay if you don't have those notches lined up with the spring. You can do that after you put this back plate back on. All right, so now we have that all together, and we're going to put this back on. I hold the motor like this while I'm putting it back in so that the brushes don't fall back out when you're reassembling it. So once again, they just slide over that post just like that. Again, trying very hard not to twist and bend this piece of wire, breaking it off and causing a whole new problem. Drop our screws back in, tighten it up. And again, when we're tightening these down, I just want the screws to seat onto the plastic, and then you just give them just a little bit of a turn to tighten them down. You don't want to over tighten these at all, because this black piece is actually plastic or like a Bakelite, and obviously when these are really old, this can really get brittle. If you over tighten it, it's going to crack this part, and there's only one thing to do at that point, and that's to find a replacement. Gluing these things together does not work because of all of the oil and and the heat also that can be created from this motor. So just be very careful. Again, don't over tighten. The E-unit itself, this particular one is extremely clean because I did do a rebuild on it a couple years ago. It's been absolutely fine. I haven't had any problems with it. And as you can see, it was actually from a 1655, which still, as long as it fits in, these E-units are pretty interchangeable with each other. No problems there. Okay, so we got that all done. We've tightened everything down. I can put this shell back on here. We're good to go. So when we're putting it on, again, it's just the reverse of taking it off. Except we want to feed this light through the face. And we want to be careful. And when we're putting any of these shells on, I should point this out now. You want to be careful about the E-unit's handle. You don't want to just jam this shell right down on, because if you do and you don't have that handle lined up properly, you're going to bend this and it's going to wreck the E-unit. And then again, you're into replacing things, which just isn't always a lot of fun. It's not always cheap. So there we go. We dropped the shell on. We've got our light sticking out of the front. We can flip it around. And we can line up our screw holes here. Just drop that in place.
I've got a test track.
Okay, so we're going to put these two back screws in. And then we're going to have a look at the wheels and the trucks to make sure that they're all clean. And then after that, I'm going to get my helper engineer over here. And we're going to throw this guy on the track. And we're going to make sure that we got them all back together and running perfectly. Right?
Yes.
So we got the shell back on. One of the things you should be careful of when you're handling this all together is this rear step, if yours actually still has it. A lot of them break off. And they're only held on by two little cast rivets that are in the back. This one is a replacement that I had to get off of Evil Bay. There was just enough material left here that I could pin it back down to hold this back in place. If you don't have that, you can probably just, I don't know, put a screw in the body or something like that. The other thing I want to do is I want to get this rear truck off, and we'll do just a quick little clean here. I should get a larger flathead. Now, cleaning the rear truck, the same as cleaning the front truck. If they're a little bit dirty, put the Scotch pad on it. Just apply a little bit of pressure downwards. Spin the wheel around a couple times. Check it. We're good. Do that with the next one. And just repeat that with all of the wheels. Because I found my 681, I was having a little bit of grounding problems recently, and I'm thinking that might have come because the wheels were so filthy. If there is very heavy soiling on any of these wheels, here's another thing you can try, is to get a flathead screwdriver, and you can rest it on the wheel just behind the problem one, and by pushing or applying a little bit of pressure forward and turning the wheel into the screwdriver, so we're spinning the wheel this way, you can actually use the screwdriver as a bit of a scraper and get off any heavy residue. Okay, and like I said, these wheels are really clean. They don't really need that, but we're good now, so we can put these trucks back onto the chassis. We got that rear truck back in. You can quickly inspect the front truck. Just like that. Okay, but they're fine, so I don't really need to go all out on them. So now what we're going to do is we are going to, and also you can check the bulb while we're here too, to make sure it's fine. Well, it's a little punched in at the bottom here. But anyways, so we're going to put that back in there like that. Put the bulb back into its holder. And push the face back on. You can put some lubricant into these trucks here. These main ones, I've never actually put any grease on them. I think when I got this thing, it was so packed that it was actually fine without actually obstructing the way it operated. So it's been great that way. And again, these wheels are all clean. Want to make sure they're. But these ones here, they do have these little slots. Here, and here. And also up in here. You can put some in there. That's perfectly fine. All right, so that is that for this locomotive. I think we're going to throw this one on the tracks and send them around a couple times just to make sure we did everything okay. What do you think, pal? All right, so let's go do that right now. Okay, we've got our 681 back onto track. And are we going to see how good of a cleaning job we did and how well he runs?
Yeah.
What cars do we have him pulling today?
The new passenger cars that we have.
Oh, very cool. Look at that.
They're brown, and they have better art than these old silver cars.
Is that what we used to have him pull before?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get Penzi hooked up. And let's see if he pulls all these cars.
Okay. I guess you just need to do it with the
Okay, so that is 681 shell removed and a little bit of general maintenance. We put him on the track and he was running good, so I think he looked pretty good. What do you think, buddy?
Yeah, there's some smoke going.
Yeah, he's still smoking because he's pretty hot in there already. Please hit subscribe and like, and maybe the notification bell if you found this video helpful. Thanks again, guys, and we'll see you in the next video.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.